Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Joe Cicero. I'll be presenting Spitting the Hook, Examining Phishing Bait for Enterprise Protection. The speaker for this room was unable to make it on time, so Mike asked if I could fill in. So I have this presentation in the can, as it were. I've never given it. I'm not going to say it's going to be polished. I hope you take away something from it. I told him it's presentable. If you deal with phishing at all, I hope you get something out of it. If you don't deal with phishing very much or a little bit, hopefully parts of the presentation will help you out with that. All right, who am I? I'm Joe Cicero. I'm currently a senior security engineer. In the past, I've been a defense forensic expert, so along the lines of forensics for this CypherCon, it's a good talk. I've been an instructor, a speaker, lecturer, security researcher, programmer, columnist, network administrator. I've held all the jobs. So I love what I do, though, now. As a senior security engineer, I love it. So why didn't I tell you where I work? How many of you are familiar with this? You've been scraped, breach? Yeah, hands in the air if you're familiar with that. All right, so I'm being recorded right now. I don't want to become a target for my employer, so I don't publish that. And if you go out and you link with me on LinkedIn, you will find that I work for undisclosed. And it's always funny when I get somebody communicating to me, hey, I'd like to talk to you about your work at undisclosed. I know that, all right, well, somebody's phishing me there. Okay, so a quick schedule of what I want to do tonight. I'm going to do a quick survey. A lot of this presentation is designed around your ability to go back to your organization and know, what can I do to teach my employees? What can I do to teach my service desk or my help desk from a triage perspective on phishing emails? What can I do or my analysts do? And then how do I react after that? So when we're talking about all of the detailed structure, what can you do once you have all the information? All right, so quick survey. Hand in the air if you can identify a phishing email. Just put your hand in the air if you can identify a phishing email. And then look at the screen. That's for a different screen. Go ahead, put your hand in the air. That's for something else. Now I got everybody. Go ahead, put your hand in the air. It's that. Okay, fine, nothing, whatever, go ahead. All right, so I asked you that, you put your hand up, the screen said, don't do it. This is exactly what happens with a phish with your employee. They get an email, it looks legit to them, they don't know the indicators to look at, they're clicking links, they're replying, right? That's what's going on. So one of the things I like to cover with the employees is the red flag concept. All right, phishing tactics work because the phishers do things that in phishing emails that you'll see in legitimate emails. You get an invoice in a legitimate email, you get an invoice in a phish. You click links in emails, you click links in phish. So the phish that we're seeing on a large scale basis are very much what you would see in real life. Therefore, each indicator, every time you say, well, look for this, look for this, look for this, you have to tell them it's a red flag. Look at the email address. Does the email address make sense? If it doesn't, that's a red flag. Look at the subject. Does the subject make sense? If it doesn't, that's a red flag. And the idea here is that numerous red flags, you go to your employee, you say, look, if you have 5 or 6 red flags, that's when you sit back and you say, all right, something's wrong with this. I need to send this to somebody else to analyze before I go clicking on a link. So that's the red flag concept. All right, some statistics. I love dealing with statistics. So 91% of phishing attacks are displayed or display name spoofs. So you have 3 parts of an email address. You've got the display name, you got the email name, and you have the domain name. And 91% of the emails out there are display name spoofs, because the bad guys know when they send you an email and you look at it, the chances are you're not going to look at the email and you're not going to look at the domain name. If it came from the CEO's name, oh, the CEO's communicating with me, I need to reply. So knowing that, one of the things that you absolutely want to communicate to your employees is We start by looking at the display name. How many of you work for an organization that gets a flag, right? A message banner that says, this is an external email. And how many of you have had people fail with the flag that says this is an external email? Right, because they become immune to it. If it's got the flag, the next step you look at is, what's the display name? If the display name makes sense, we go to the email name. If the email name makes sense, you go to the domain name, and 91% of your problems stop if your employees do that. All right, display name spoofing. Here's a display name spoof, right? Dan McMillan in red. We got Dan McMillan, but it came from Ralph Jones at mailinator.com. That's the display name. Anyone typically can change the display name, and I have that typically in star. We'll talk about that later. But if you have a Gmail account, I believe Gmail allows you to change the display name every 6 months. Maybe it's every 3 months, every quarter. So anybody can do this. You can make the display name whatever you want. And this leads to CEO fraud emails because they get an email address, they make it, CEO at mailinator.com, and they say, all right, I'm going to go after your organization, so I'm going to make that Dan McMillan. All of a sudden you have that. Employees that are in a hurry will overlook this. How many of you deal with BYOD? BYOD or small devices, right? Here's a problem, because if you allow an iPhone and you allow Android and you're using Outlook inside or some other client inside your organization, you have to teach this 3 different ways. You have to provide your employees 3 different ways to look at it and say, okay, on an iPhone, you won't ever see the email name or the domain name. But if it didn't come from your organization, it'll be colored in red. In Android, it will show you the display name and the email name and the domain name. And then depending upon how you have your client software configured, it might display that. Hackers can reuse email accounts in numerous attacks. There's no cost or little time and little effort. So as I massage this presentation and get it better and better and better, one of the things I absolutely want to talk about is making it expensive for the bad guy. As a whole, the security industry is not making it expensive for the bad guy. If you make it expensive, if you get something from a Gmail account and you say, all right, I'm blocking that Gmail account, and now my organization is taken care of, you haven't communicated to Gmail that this account is being used in CEO fraud or some type of phishing attack, and now Gmail's not taking that account away. When it gets harder and harder and harder for the bad guy or gal to be able to do this, you're going to make it more expensive. They're going to go after somebody else. So I want to enlist you into moving forward with a lot of those tactics as you go forward. All right. Fisher tactic. So here's the Fisher tactic, right? We've got hacker tactic, place fake reply information within the body of the email. So I ran into a phish that came in. The account had been compromised. They stole somebody's email account. I see this all the time with not free emails, but like your AT&T account or your Comcast account, right? Your home account. Somebody has taken somebody else's home account away, and they're going after your organization with it because that account's not going to be flagged. The tactic was to place fake information in the subject. Now, if you look, I don't know if I have this zoomed or not. Yeah, here we go. All right. It's coming from Larry, but they pasted into the body of the email from Dan McMillan. So where does your eyes go as the user that received this email? Oh, this is coming from Dan, my boss. Not, it's coming from Larry. So this is a tactic that you have to be aware of and you have to communicate to people, right? Didn't come from Larry, it came from Larry, not actually from the boss. So this is a tactic you want to be training your employees and your service desk, help desk, whatever, to be looking for. All right, email name spoofing. This might get a little harder, right? If you're dealing with a free online account, it's not hard, providing that name exists. Anybody can go out, believe it or not, AOL is still around. You can go out to AOL.com, you get yourself an AOL email address, and you can have anything you want because nobody uses AOL. So here we have a display name spoofed and an email address spoofed. But the domain name is still wrong. Your employee gets this. It's CEO fraud. Dan McMillan's your CEO. All of a sudden, they're checking 1, they're checking 2, they check 3. The domain name is bad, and 91% of this, you take care of your problem here. But they have to be able to get that address. So anyone can create an email on free sites. Additional check that employees should be taking. Hackers can reuse an email account in numerous attacks, or they can't. So this is the important thing about setting up the bad guy setting up an email account that has the email name. They can only use it against you. Now, how many of you keep track of indicator of compromises or threat intelligence? Any threat intel people? All right, so very important, great job. One of the things that I want to do is keep track of this, because this shows a little more sophistication on the bad guy's job. So when I'm keeping track of my threat intel, one of the things I'm marking off is did it change the display name? Because that's cheap and they can reuse that account. But did they spoof the email name? Now, if the email name is spoofed, that took a little bit more. They can't reuse that account. That account is only going to be used against my organization. So I've increased it. They can't reuse that account. There's still probably no cost. There's a little bit more time and there's a little bit more effort. So this is costing them more, and you want a higher cost. So I went out and I wanted to find out, all right, does Dan McMillan, can I get that email? Sure, I can get that at groupmail.com. So very easy, I can go get that. Free email. Phisher tactic. So here's a tactic that I see being used regularly. It's where they did not change the email address name. Notice that this email address name is CEO Mail. So Dan McMillan's my CEO. He's not my CEO, but if he were my CEO, here's my CEO, Dan McMillan. I can spoof that. I can change that 100 times a day if I want, but I can't change that email name. So here's somebody who didn't use a whole lot of effort to go after the organization. All right, domain name spoofing. Now we're talking about something that's going to be a little bit more expensive. So here we have Dan McMillan. They've spoofed the display name. They've spoofed the email name. And instead of SamMart, we have samnnart.com. So now they're trying to spoof the domain name. Anybody can purchase a domain name. Right now, I'm seeing a lot of .infos, .clubs. Why? Anybody?
New domain.
It's a new top-level domain, but why are they using info and club?
Nobody reads that far, actually.
That's true. What? Somebody said it. Yeah, they're $1.99. All right, so once again, you have somebody who's buying a domain. That's going to go into my threat intel. Okay, they didn't bother with a com, which might have cost them $7.99. They bought an info or a club. I still want to shut that down because shutting it down cost them $2. Now they got to go buy it again. Additional checks that employees should make. Once again, we're checking the display name, we're checking the domain or the email name, and we're checking the domain name. Hackers can't reuse a domain name. They can't use it in numerous attacks. SamNNART is only going to work against SamMart. And unless it's generic in nature, like Verizon.uk, it's more cost, it's more time, and it's more effort. So more things that I want to put into my threat intel. So I wanted to go out and see what type of examples I could get. Here I could get sammart-mail.com. This is something I'm seeing a lot more of, and it ends up being a lot of false positives. How many of you have seen subdomains or domains with CDN in them? CDN, Content Delivery Network. So all of a sudden, I have a domain that I'm blocking because it's not on a whitelist, it's being blocked. I'm looking at it, it's got CDN in it, and I have to go verify that this domain is actually owned by the same organization that has the regular domain. A couple of weeks ago, I had one where I contacted the organization, said, I'm seeing this domain. I think it ended in .stream. So another dumbest thing in the world they ever did was come up with all these new top-level domains. It was the domain .stream. Puts me on high alert. What is this? Contact the VP of marketing of the organization. Do you own this domain? What was her answer? That's exactly right. I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. Now they got back to me. Yes, they own that. Yes, that's where they're putting their streaming content. Yay, I can allow that. All right. But that's the type of problem you're going to end up from a security engineer perspective with false positives. All right. Subject trigger words. Again, we haven't even moved to the service desk or the high-end analysis. We're still talking about things that I would tell your employees to have to do. Subjects contain trigger words lots of times. Effective because marketing emails and legitimate emails do this also. Hurry, your account might be suspended. I see that as many times in a legitimate email as I do in a phishing email. It invokes a sense of urgency, curiosity, examples, invoice, PO. If you get an email with invoice in the subject, do you sell invoices? Do you pay invoices? Do you take care of invoices? If you don't, that's a conversation you have with your employees about it. Maybe we don't need to be dealing with this email. That's a red flag right away. Alert, warning, attention, etc. All right, so phishing emails that invoke fear, urgency, get the most clicks. All right, same thing in the body. We've told them, you get an email, I want you checking the display name, I want you checking the email name, I want you checking the domain name, I want you checking the subject for all these red flags. Now let's take a look at the body. In 2018, less is more. Increase in minimal verbiage emails. Hand in the air if you have seen blank emails come into your organization. Nothing in them. Great. Hand in the air if you have short little emails like, are you available? There. So everybody, we've seen these, Joe. And our employees are falling for them. All right. So it used to be that they would have the Bible in there, right? It was all broken English, and you could tell in an instant. But the new tactic is we send you nothing, or we send you very little, and it's hard to make a determination. Hey, are you available? Yeah, I'm available. You get that on your iPhone, and you have very little photo way to tell that that's a bad email, and your users are clicking it and replying. Yeah, they're busy. Our users are busy. All right, generic versus specific salutation. This really depends. So this is more things that go into your indicators of compromise or your threat intelligence spreadsheet. Did they use a generic? Hey, are you available? Or did they say, hey, Sue, are you available? Because now you've had somebody who's taken the time to research the individual that they sent this email, and they have an internal name. They know who they're sending this to. That's more information. You're dealing with a more sophisticated attacker. So you want to make sure that you get that in your threat intel. May contain the same trigger words in the subject. So we have our users looking for that. We have them looking for spelling errors. Good story. An intern that worked for me sent me a fish he received. Said, look at this one. 2 spelling errors in it. I laughed. So I took that. I like analyzing things. I go home and I analyze things. So I took that and I analyzed that. I said, all right, I'm gonna click the link. I'm gonna go to it. Well, I went to it, and it was his college sending him a phishing email that was a test. And so I just failed the test for him because I visited the link. At the end of the link was a code. And if I changed the code, I failed for other students. So I failed for 3 or 4 other people, and then I sent them an email. Said, by the way, enough other people failed this too. Okay. But when you see these emails come in now, what you're seeing with the short, small amount that's inside the email is not a lot of spelling errors, not a lot of problems with that. So we can't use that as a trigger anymore. May contain shortened URLs like bit.ly, goog.gl, and many others, right? I'm trying to think. u.to is probably the shortest one I've seen. May contain URL to hack sites. We're going to cover that in a little bit. URLs to sites that do meta redirects. So this is a new tactic I've seen where they send you to a site, and that site makes a determination about who you are, where you're coming from, what browser you're using, so they can send you to a different site that may have a vulnerability for that specific browser or operating system. May contain fake attachments and may look perfect. So once again, all the previous checks I discussed, plus these things, it would be what I am communicating to my employees. These are the checks I want you to make. These are things that they can tell. All right, so here's a nice little short one. Do you have a minute? Hey, are you available? I need you to take care of something for me ASAP. Oh, you got to have that ASAP in there, right? Did that come from Dan McMillan? No, it came from a display name spoof Dan McMillan at CEO Mail at groupmail.com. Didn't come from my organization. No one should have replied to that. All right, zoom in for it. Okay, Fisher tactic, blank email. For those of you who have received a blank email, there were a few hands in the air. How did you analyze it? What did you say about it? Did you block the user? Is it a mistake? Or does it have a 1 pixel image in it that just went back and told whoever sent that email, the operating system, the browser, the client email, this all exists for free. You can go out onto the internet. You can get yourself a 1 pixel image that you can put into an email that you can send to somebody, and you'll get all that information back. I wish I had the screenshots of it. When I first ran the test, I looked at it and it said somebody in, is Google in Cupertino? Yeah, somebody? All right, so it wasn't, it was Google. Where's Google? What's that? Okay, yeah, somewhere in California. So it showed my email being opened up in California and then at my house. And when I looked at that, I went, that's one of those, oh my God moments. And then I realized I was using Google, and I knew Google this was all a test account. I know Google's reading my email, but I'd never seen it done. So if you ever go out there and create one of those 1 pixel images, Google it, you'll find somebody that will do message tracking via an image. And you have a Gmail account, you will see Google open and read your email and then send it to you. If you LinkedIn with me, I have an article out on LinkedIn that shows it. Okay, so one of the other tactics that I was talking about is these shortened URLs. So I don't know if you're aware of it, but there are websites that you can put a shortened URL in and it tells you where you can go. So when we get to the, as an examiner, as an analyst, how would you handle this, knowing where it goes? There are websites that will do that. This happens to be Proofpoint rewriting a URL. The URL it's rewriting is a bit.ly, and the reason the hacker or the bad guy did this was so that the actual URL they were using would not be captured by Proofpoint, right? Unless you're blocking bit.ly, which would be a very difficult thing in this day and age to do, this link is going to get clicked. It's going to, your Proofpoint or whatever you're using for analysis, if it's not actually visiting the link and finding out where that link ends up, you're vulnerable. All right, this is a great one. So I don't know how many of you are familiar with 1hoursitefix.com. By the way, I'm not recommending you go to any of these sites. So when I went to this site, I was on my system. It was a secured system. I was doing some testing. This particular site I have not analyzed, so I can't tell you this is safe. But I went out there, I did a search, and I found that this allharfyun.com/kinghtml had malicious redirects and defacement. All right, so the important part of this screen is 2018-11-19 at 22:44. So let's just remember 11/19 on what is that, November 19th. So then I went out to, how many of you are familiar with virustotal.com? I would hope, all those are. VirusTotal is a website, I think it's owned by Google, it's safe, that you can upload an executable or any file. You can upload a file to it, or you can tell me what you know about this URL. And it will scan it with 69 different AV products. And it will tell you whether or not it's bad. And so you'll see over here, 0 of 69 found that allharfyun.com/king.html was bad. 69 AV products are saying, have at it. Go to that site. You got no problem. However, if you look at the last analysis date on this, you'll see it's at 12/23. So this is how many days after the other site said this is an infected site, that Google is, Virus Total is telling you, you got no problem. That should tell you, thank you, that should, just started, that should tell you how weak AV is. All right, AV is not your friend. You cannot trust it. And it should also tell you, those of you that are doing threat intelligence and using this, and I use it, I use Virus Total all the time. Because if Virus Total comes back and tells me 15 sites say it's malicious, I'm done. But if it tells me 0 out of 69, all right, that's nothing. Anybody can beat this. So I have to move forward. All right. So those of you familiar with Webroot Bright Cloud, so after that I went out to Webroot Bright Cloud. I said, what's the reputation of allharfune.com? And you'll see it's 96 out of 100. Ooh, that sounds like a great site. So part of the threat intel that I'm going to be documenting is all this information. How am I going to use that? I'm going to go to my management and I'm going to say 69 AV vendors didn't catch this. Webroot Bright Cloud said this was safe. Yet my analysis shows it's not. That means we have to have these different vectors protected in some way, shape, or form. All right, Fisher tactic. When you open the attachment, it's actually a PDF file made to appear like an error message. Anybody seen this one? So your user gets an email with an attachment. They open up the attachment says, oh, I've erred. They click that, and it contains instructions for opening the document in Excel, but it's actually a link to a website. Unless you're doing some type of advanced analysis, sandboxing is what we would call it, of your emails coming in, your user's going to end up getting to this. They're going to that site, and depending upon what's on that site, you may be getting infected. Another example of these PDF documents put on pretense that you need to sign into an online storage provider, Dropbox, to access your document. Dropbox, I freaking hate it. How many of us could do business without it? Right? So Dropbox is one of those things that organizations just say, yeah, we use Dropbox, we use Dropbox. Well, that's why the bad guys are using it. Clicking the link takes you to Dropbox login page, which gives you options to sign in using your Google, Outlook, Yahoo, AOL, Office 365, or other email, right? So if you ever see this, you capture a screenshot of it and you show it to your employees and say, if you ever see this, it's bad. No site is ever going to say, by the way, you can log in and get your document using any credential you want to give me. That just ain't going to happen. All right, so new Fisher tactic, as I talked about earlier, is fake attachments. So you'll see in this particular email, the attachment that's right underneath the email name there, that's a real attachment. But if it's under the verbiage, if it's under the text, actually this one's reversed. You got to know what you're using. So in this particular one, a fake attachment is on top, and a real attachment is down at the bottom. This must be Google Client or something. So depending upon how your client email program handles attachments, you may see the attachment as an image in the bottom is fake, but a real attachment is up here at the top. You have to train your users on that, because they're going to look at it and say, oh, I expect to get this email. Here's the attachment. They click it, boom, they're out to the malicious site. All right, so that's the training that I would do with the employees. And that you may have to adjust that some, but there's nothing complex about that. And you may have to do it regularly for them to be able to get a hold of it. What's the analysis that I would have depending upon the level of your service desk or your security analyst or your security engineer doing? Well, one of the first things that we're going to want to do is take a look at the header. So those of you who don't know that's a header. Header comes in the email. How do you see a header in Outlook? This presentation, by the way, was for non-techie people, so I would expect you guys would be able to Google, how do I look at my header, and figure it out. All right, file properties, that would show you your header in Outlook. What's in a header that you might want to know about? Well, the first thing would be the SPF. Do we have any email administrators? If I say it wrong, please let me know. I am not an email administrator. Like a lot of this stuff, I know enough to be dangerous. Sender policy framework. The email might come with an SPF check. This is basically, and if there was an email administrator, they could tell me, I think you get 10 entries in your SPF check. So if your marketing department, if you're big enough to have a marketing department, and the marketing department wants to use, what's that company that they send out emails with? Thank you, Constant Contact, piece of crap. No, I'm just joking. All right, they use Constant Contact to send emails on your company's behalf. But the marketing department doesn't go to IT and say, I need Constant Contact to be in the SPF record. Then every email that Constant Contact sends out is going to get crapped on because it's going to fail the SPF check. This organization is not authorized to send email for your organization. That's what an SPF check is. So if you have SPF set up and an organization is sending emails on your behalf, you get a nice little pass in a lot of the websites. DKIM, all right, so should be instead considered a method to verify that the message contents are trustworthy, meaning that they weren't changed from the moment the message left the initial mail server. So we can do a DKIM, you can look in the header and you can see, was a DKIM check performed? And if it was, and the SPF check was performed, you can say, all right, came from an authorized place and it wasn't modified on the way to me. Yay. DMARC, Domain Message Authentication Reporting and Conformance policy, allows a sender to indicate that their messages are protected by SPF and DKIM, tells the receiver what to do if neither of those authentication methods pass, such as junk or reject the message. So this is in human speak what the DMARC is. I get an email from you. I check DMARC. DMARC tells me if the SPF fails, ignore the message. If the SPF passes, allow the message. If the SPF fails, allow the message. If the DKIM fails, allow the message. So it's a way for the recipient, me getting your email, to know what to do with your email when these other things fail. Everybody kind of get it? I want to know that stuff. So if I'm looking in the header. All right. I'm not going to go through line by line analyzing a header. I don't do it. So here are some websites that you can use that would allow you to check those for SPF and DKIM and DMARC. Once again, I'm not guaranteeing that these aren't malware sites. I know most of them. MX Toolbox is good, and whatismyip.com and IP2 location. These are all sites where you can go and you can paste the header in, and it will tell you information about that header, whether or not you have to worry about it. How am I doing on time? I'm okay. All right, so online header. So here's G Suite. So this is Google. And here Google has told me it's past the SPF, it's past the DKIM, and it's past DMARC. So what that tells me is it came from an authorized sender, the message contents were not changed, and because of that, the DMARC is passed. Typically, somebody who has not dealt with a lot of phishing emails, it's legit. All right, but we're going to find out how it may not be legit, just like 0 out of 69 on virus total may be meaningless. This is now meaningless to me. If, however, it fails SPF and it fails DKIM and it fails DMARC, okay, I know I have an issue. So we're really get in the habit of looking at those things. All right, so here we have Verizon Communication. The email claims to come from Verizon Communication, but or actually it claims to come from Bank of America, but it's coming from, let's see, or maybe it's claiming to come from Verizon.com, but it's coming from online. No, it must be from Bank of America. That's right. It's pretending to come from Bank of America, but it actually came from Verizon. Somebody using their Verizon account to send me a phish. I pretty much know, all right, this is a phishing email. I'm done with this one. From the standpoint of those of you that are documenting the indicators of compromise and the threat intelligence, this is more threat intel that we want to know about, because we may be able to block things based upon, you know what, we're starting to see different things coming from Verizon.com that are faking being from our domain. Okay, can headers be spoofed or faked? Yes, but only part of them can be faked. For the email to be delivered, some of the information in that header has to be real. So when you do your analysis, it's all suspect except the last hop. Because those of you that know Cali or run out on the internet, right, you can fake a header. For those of you that are documenting threat intelligence, when you have, when you start seeing Japan, Comcast in Florida, right? You can start saying to the email administrator, you know what? I'm seeing all of this from Japan. I want to block anything that in the header has this information because it didn't actually come from there. It's being faked. All right, how do I do that, Joe? Because this is CypherCon. So here's MKey's mailer, and in MKey's mailer, you can click on advanced settings and you can add a header. Yay! So if I add this header, I can send anything I want from anywhere I want. Now, this was a mistake. I probably shouldn't have done this. When I was learning to use this, I thought, all right, well, who am I going to use? Donald Trump at whitehouse.gov. Like, I'll just fake that as a header. And the email never got to me. And I thought, oh, I'm on a list now. So when you're playing around with this stuff and sending yourself fake headers, come up with something probably not that. Oh, look, here it is. It made it to me. All right, so here we go. Donald Trump, D-Trump at whitehouse.gov, right? I want to fake the header, so I faked the email address. You'll notice my SPF and my DMARC failed, so I'm done, right? All right, I know, all right, it's fake. This is no good. But I'm not done as the analyst because I'm keeping my indicators of compromise and my threat intelligence. I'm going to do a complete job, so I have all that data. You'll notice it actually came from, the last hop was mkey.cz. So this came from the Czech Republic, not from Washington, D.C. This was very interesting to me, right? So I think what I did is I faked a Poland header, and I sent it, and IP2 location told me, yeah, it started in Poland, and then it went through the Czech Republic, and then it came to me. And the reality is it never went through Poland. I faked that Poland header, so it actually came from the Czech Republic. So then a typical person is going to say, well then, Joe, all I got to do is look at the last one. Technically, you would be correct, right? Look at the last hop. That's where it came from. But if you're documenting those indicators of compromise and that threat intelligence, you want to know every hop it made because multiple of those hops may have been faked. All right. Can Phish pass SPF DK? I'm an IP check. Can a Phish do that? Sure. If a hacked email account is used, everything will pass. How many of you are seeing BECs, business email compromise, also known as AEC, account email compromise, also known as supply chain attacks, right? Hey, so a legitimate organization that deals with your organization gets hacked, probably through Outlook 365. That person's email is now being used to send you an email. Everything's going to pass. Now you're getting a Phish that is absolutely legit except for the contents. Can they put those contents on a legitimate domain? Can they put a hyperlink to a legitimate domain that 0 out of 69 AVs are going to flag? We learned that earlier. Absolutely. So now things get really, really difficult. Now you have to have a user who can say, this is not normal. This is going to increase your calls to the service desk. This is going to increase your workload, especially if, whether it's a false positive or not, you have to analyze it. But it's going to make you more secure. Industry is seeing a rise in this tactic, business email compromise, email compromise. Three biggest phishing scams of 2018, since 2019 is not over. 126% increase in email account takeover. Why? Because a whole lot of email addresses are just being dropped. The only way the bad guy can get into your organization is if they go after a legitimate email address. Okay, inspecting attachments. How are you going to do this? If you're the security analyst, you're the investigator, you're the examiner, and you now have an attachment, how do you examine it? All right, well, who is it coming from? What could the content? The first thing that you ask is, who is this pretending, or who might it be coming from? And what could the contents be? I'm in healthcare. I have to be very careful about any attachment that comes in, because if it's a false positive, it may contain PHI. I can't upload that to hybrid analysis or virus total. So I have to, 5 minutes, oh, I gotta move. So I have to be very careful about how I analyze these. You may be in the same, those of you that are in the banking industry, those of you that are in education, right? You may have something that is protected for you and you can't just go upload it. If you look at it and you say there's not going to be anything in this particular document, then you might be able to use virus total hybrid analysis. You might want to open it in a sandbox or a virtual machine. I highly recommend the virtual machine is not on your production network. All right, so I segregate this stuff, get this stuff segregated. If you don't have money for a sandbox, there's a cuckoo sandbox out there and it's freeware. It'll run on Ubuntu. It will be a pain to get installed and working, but once you got it, it's golden. You're golden. You have something that you can analyze. Other tactics that I have used to be able to analyze something very quickly was to open it in a non-standard way. If I get a PDF, maybe I can convert it to a doc. So if it has malware, PDF malware in it, and I open it up in WordPad or something, right? Now that malware is not going to run, and I can see the contents of the email. Convert the doc to PDF. I love hex editors. I open up tons of things in a hex editor because now it's just like looking at it in a binary. I can go open it up in a hex editor. I can read the document. I can call the user and say, does any of this make sense to you? Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, then this is probably a false positive. Inspecting links, caution checking on public websites. Again, you don't want to just upload to just anywhere. You have to know whether or not the potential of this document containing something that you can't publish is in there. So be careful of that. Virus Total, trendmicro.com, Bright Cloud, using a sandbox. Now, this is a really cool thing that I started doing a couple of months ago, and it's screenshot.guru. This one I did inspect. So the last time I looked at it, no malware here. What you can do is if somebody gets a hyperlink and you don't know if that's a valid hyperlink or not, you can go to screenshot.guru, put it in there, and it will show you a JPEG of the website. So if it's a fake tech support site or malware site, you'll get a picture of the malware site. You're secure. So if you need to make a determination quickly, that's one way you might be able to do that. Other things that I want to know is whether or not the link redirects, if the redirection is based on time, or does the redirection change based on browser. I'm seeing this a lot. The bad guys are looking at the browser agent and they're saying, oh, it's Mozilla, and they redirect me to Yahoo or Gmail or Google. What's the analyst going to say? This website's not a problem, and you're not going to block it at your firewall, and you're not going to contact your firewall vendor and say this needs to be blocked. But then you change it to IE. Right? And Mozilla has a plugin, user agent switcher. So I say, make it say I'm in IE. And all of a sudden, I'm at a fake tech support page. So know those tactics are out there. Know how you can handle some of those tactics. All right, prevention steps. I probably have a few minutes here, 2 minutes. Prevention steps, blocking the email address or domain. So these are the tactics you're taking with your organization. I'm going to block the email address. I'm going to block the domain. May sound easy, may not be possible. If it was a business email compromise and you have to deal with that person, try blocking them, right? You may be able to block them today, but you may be unblocking them very shortly because otherwise your people don't get credentialed, all right? Understand that those exist. Remove additional emails to your users, right? Contacting your email administrator, run through, get rid of this stuff. Blocking the link URL. Identifying users who have replied, clicked, or opened the attachment, right? If you can know that, now you may have a system that's infected. You want to stop it now. We want to take these 69-day infections and bring them down to hours, not months and days. Notify your anti-phishing vendor. So if you're using something to anti-phish and something got through, you want to contact them. Look, this got through. I want you to fix this problem. Notify the email domain owner. So if I get something from that's at some website here, and there's a pro and con to this. Do I want to go alert the website and say, I want you to know that your website is currently being used for fake tech support or malware? There's a pro and a con to that. The pro is I protect everyone and I cost the bad guy money. The con to that is they're just going to find another one and they're going to publish it, and that makes me vulnerable again because I may not know about that one. So depending upon whether you're blocking domains that are currently set up and only 30 days old, or right, all of those things that you may be able to firewall, you have to decide on this. I'm a proponent of making things more expensive. That does not mean that the organization that I work for is a proponent of that. That is a discussion that you have to have with them. Notifying the domain registrar. So here's a good one, right? The sites in Poland or Czech, what are you going to do? You're going to contact the Czech site? So you may be able to contact the domain registrar, right, Nick, and let them know and shut the site down. Think about how these things work. You might be able to do that. Notifying your firewall vendor, the owning company website, if it was a hacked account, letting them know immediately, website hosting company, internet crime complaints. Anybody dealt with them? IC3? Yeah, that's what I figured. All right, threat intel. Most valuable threat intelligence originates from your own environment and stays there. You can get threat intel feeds all you want. You can get threat intel feeds on your vertical, meaning whatever type of organization you are, banking, healthcare, education. The best threat intel is what you're seeing now, because that's the stuff that you can act upon as fast. You can create a scorecard, and then I wanted to talk about phishing testing, but I'm out of time. Do I have time for questions?
No.
No. Thank you. I appreciate it. Everybody have a good night.